let you enjoy the financial extravaganza. And of course, we've got the amazing expo right there. But we'd urge you, ladies and gentlemen, as our next topic we're talking about is longevity finance. And we're elated that we have some great and the brightest minds joining us for the same. The moderator of this conversation's going to be Mr. Nitin Jaiswal, head of Asia-Pac, Bloomberg LP, joining us. And the esteemed speakers are going to be Ms. Kaku Nakhate, President and India Country Head, Bank of America, Mr. Aditya Chatterjee, MD, Equifax Credit Information, and Ms. Chaojung Chen, who is the Managing Director and Senior Partner of Boston Consulting Group. With a warm round of applause, let's welcome our dignitaries on the stage. Well, as our esteemed delegates are now seated, I'd like to leave it in the able hands of Mr. Nitin Jaiswal to take it forward.
Thank you for the introduction, and a very warm welcome to my esteemed panelists and everybody in the room. We are going to talk about longevity, economy, and finance. And if you are wondering why we are actually talking about a subject which is not a traditional fintech in one of the biggest room or the auditorium of the session. And the reason why we are doing that is because we are going to address probably the most biggest elephant in the room, which we tend to ignore, and that is longevity. So it's a very new subject, so I thought before I get my group into the discussion, I wanted to share some thoughts as part of the context setting. So longevity economy refers to economic contribution of people aged 50 years and older. So we all know that human lives longer. That is what we keep reading. But how long? So there's a research done by MIT which says that there is a 60 to 70% probability people with good healthy lifestyle can end up living around 100 years. So 70% probability of people living 100 years, and women will outlive men by 10 to 15 years. Just to scare each one of you in this room, if you are 50 years, essentially what we are saying, you have another 50 years of healthy life ahead of you. And if you are women, you have 65 years of life ahead of you. But the challenge is, nobody is prepared for it. Neither the government, neither policymakers, nor the business, individuals, and the society. And this is definitely a big challenge, but as we'll discuss, also a big opportunity, and that is what we want to focus. So how big is the opportunity? We talk about AI to be the next big one. We talk about climate to be the next big one. Let me share some numbers, how big this is. According to the Global Longevity Economy Report, Outlook, published in 2020, the 50-plus population contribute $45 trillion to the global GDP. This number by 2030 is going to be 65 trillion, and by 2050, it will be 118 trillion. The 50-plus, the longevity economy, account for half of global consumer spending at $35 trillion in 2020. By 2050, it will be $96 trillion. Now you know what I mean by the biggest elephant in the room. So with this such a large opportunity, not many people are focusing, and we thought that we'll use this Global Fintech Fest as a platform to bring this topic in front of everyone, that why you should be and how you should be capitalizing on this opportunity. And to help me with this, I have three esteemed panelists. And let me start with Kaku first. I've worked with Kaku on this longevity for quite some time, and she chaired a committee which produced probably the world's first comprehensive report on longevity economy, that could actually come up in India. So Kaku, good to see you again. So can you share with us what are the key findings in that report has been for the benefit of people in the room?
No, thank you for chairing this committee. Of course, I firmly believe, also given that I'm above 50, it's applicable to me. And it made me necessary put on a thinking hat. And there we were at GIFT City's initiative, we actually worked on a report, because India really has a chance to become the longevity hub for the world. And that was the full focus of having it at GIFT City. Of course, the recommendations were quite a few, but I thought I could highlight just a few for us. The first one was that basically silver entrepreneurship. As you all know, that, a decade back, people were not even sponsoring startups. And then there was a focus around it. And today you have so many startups which are listed in India today and really doing well, creating the employment. Now, if you look at people at 50, they are essentially, there are quite a few professionals who have done well in their lives. They have saved up the money and don't have the urgent necessity to contribute, but they have a healthy life, they have the right skill sets, and they have the great minds. How are we utilizing them more to really, create an ecosystem and increase the GDP of a country? And that's when we suggest silver entrepreneurship should be encouraged, labs and sandboxes should be allowed, seed funding could come their way, and this could really create newer kind of startups also, which would help create jobs for India. So that was the first suggestion. Second was to have more holistic senior care. What I mean is that once you are above 50, you may not have anyone to really care for you on a day-to-day basis. So what we suggested is that you could have products that could really take care of you, not only in terms of healthcare, and medical, but also an ecosystem where you could have senior living, where you could have socioeconomic, interconnectivity, you could have entertainment, you could have financial literacy, and many such things. And that ecosystem can actually make it robust for people above 50 who have money and who can really enjoy the same lifestyle as that. The third thing that I thought worth highlighting is women. Nitin just said women live longer than men. But most women don't have financial literacy when, they lose their spouse, for example. So how do we really train them up? How do we make them self-sufficient to really take care of their future lives? So financial literacy is the third recommendation that I would say. And finally, I would say to really garner the attention of the amount of money that's going to be available, how can we have flexible products that meet the requirement so that the lifestyle remains the same? So just last statistic I'd like to add, Nitin, that today there are 17 countries where 1/5 of the population is over 60. In 2100, you'll have 155 countries where the population is over 60. And in India, if I take, today we only have 8.2% above 60. But by 2050, we will have almost 20% of our population over 60. So I really feel with all these things, we need to start now so that we can have the facilities to really take care of the opportunity as well as the convenience.
Thank you, Kaku, for sharing some key highlights from the report. I think if anybody wants to access, then afterwards we can actually share the contact details and you can download the report. And it's a very comprehensive report for you to read. But listening to some of the numbers which Kaku added in terms of the population, looks like next time we need a much bigger room than this. The elephant looks like much bigger than what I actually talked about. So Kaku talked about, from a global context and from India context, what we want to do. So now next speaker, next panelist, Chen, she is from Japan. Japan is a country where we are actually seeing the evolution of the longevity economy. That is one country which is experiencing the whole longevity and the aging population. So let's hear from her opening remarks as to how does she see what's happening in Japan, some of the key learnings and key observations which will be beneficial for people in the room.
Thank you very much. So Japan has really long-living population, and I think they're doing a very good job at different sectors. For example, in terms of the public sector, the government tries to make this agenda a very natural topic into all the citizens' daily life. They started from bringing up a slogan called life is 100 years long. So now it has become a slogan that everybody knows in Japan. Life is 100 years long. So it pushes people to think about how you want to really plan to live 100 years in every sense. Given this term, a lot of young generation started to think about, do I have enough savings? And then they come up with another term just for the younger generation. It says issue of 20K US dollar, which means they are trying to tell 200K US dollar. They are trying to educate their younger generation. If you don't have this amount of saving, you are in trouble after you get old. So far, in Japan, most people don't really think about investment. They want to just put the deposit in the saving account. They don't move it. They feel investment is dangerous, it's risky. So they just put all their money as deposit. But after this slogan for the younger generation called issue of 200K, a lot of younger generations started to think, oh, what should I do? Maybe I should invest. And that changes the behaviors of their young populations. And the government then started to give some tax policy because more and more people are aware they have to invest. So they started to give a quota every year for the citizens to invest in the mutual fund. And if you invest every year below the threshold, which is 20K US dollar, you don't have to pay tax, even if you get earnings from that. So now everybody goes to the bank, and the bank will tell them, you should invest, and this is beneficial for you, even from the tax perspective. This creates a very solid foundation for the populations to start to accumulate every year some asset to reach the threshold so that they can avoid this 200K issue when they get old. And money is not just the problem that you have to solve. So the government also started to build their education program to reskill. Nowadays, you see a lot of news on the newspaper saying all the companies started to think how to re-educate, reskill their employees. And this is, of course, driven by the agenda shaping of the government. They are trying to tell the companies, in order to have very long-living employees working in your companies, starting to deliver value when they were young, but continues to deliver different types of values as the society changes, as your company evolves. You need to reskill them and make them perform under any situation. So now they have very structured program or started to plan that in every companies so that, for example, people learn about how to do business in digital age. They learn about Gen AI in order to perform in a longer term. So that creates a more solid foundation, not just in the investment or money perspective, but in the terms of how you feel you are useful in the society, even when you get older. The next point is about how to die. Another term they created is activity to prepare to die. This is also a very popular agenda in Japan that they shaped by both the government, the companies, and also the media. they put this term in a lot of journals, in a lot of newspapers, and even some interesting posts online to tell people actually plan to die is not a bad thing. So far, in the banks, they are afraid to talk about inheritance to their customers because they feel the customers will feel so insulted or being upset. Are you talking about this because you feel I'm old or you feel I'm going to die soon? However, once this slogan, prepare to die well or prepare to age gracefully, becomes a popular topic, people started to plan, what should I get prepared for the remaining of my life? After I die, who should I give my inheritance to? And they even created a new business for people to donate. Because now, as you know, Japanese has less and less kids as a society. So they found a lot of people will actually have no people to give their assets after they die. So now they are trying to educate also people who don't have kids, you can donate. And there will be a lot of people who appreciate for what you do after you do this. So by doing all these three elements, they are trying to gradually change people's mind so that they get prepared for the long life in different perspectives, and they get prepared to age gracefully and even to die anytime in a good way. This is how actually the government changes people's mindset together, making effort with the companies and starting to make the changes when people work in the company and also influencing their younger generation. And that creates the atmosphere in the society. It's fine. We're going to get old and we're going to have really long life. Let's make it better.
You know, it's a very great insight, I have to say that. But that also actually quite heartening to hear what Japan is doing, because when we were preparing this report, we had no idea whether we are moving in the right direction. The recommendations are practical or no, but listening to Japan experience, that give us the confidence that we were thinking in the right direction. So that's very heartening to know. And as always, Japan never ceases to surprise me. Always the best everything they do. I think government is doing a great job to really address this problem. So we looked at the big picture. We looked at what Japan experience is. Now we are in the tech, conference. So let me get the tech element to it. Okay, and so there's a very interesting quote I read when we were preparing for this session. This is by Nandan Nilekani on in one of his book. He said, "Technology is built by youth and for men." And I kept thinking how far it's true till the time I realized my mother still struggled to do KYC. Despite so much money being put into the fintech space, she still struggled to find where is the PNR number to change the booking. She has the time, she has the money, but she doesn't have the technology support to capitalize on what. So there's a big opportunity where tech actually is, letting go. So let me get to Aditya over there and get his perspective about the importance of technology and data in analyzing the whole longevity, which the entrepreneurs and the policymakers can use.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Let me get through some data first in terms of this whole longevity finance. Coming from a bureau perspective, let me give you some data from the bureaus in India. So about 15% of the bureau pop is less than 25 years of age. About 65% of the bureau population is 25 to 40 years of age. And hence around 20% of the bureau population is greater than 40 years. I'm using the yardstick of 40 years, and greater than 40 is just 20%. So if we kind of move the needle and go to 50 plus, a guesstimate is that there is just about 10% of the people out there in the bureau, which is give or take 50 million people, out of 1.5 billion people who are there in the bureau in India who are 50 plus. Now, why am I stressing on this bureau perspective? Because from an India standpoint, no amount of financial inclusion, financial impact, financial action can come if you are not present in a bureau perspective, because the credit institutions will be unable to help you. This is a situation now, right? As we stand today, these are figures of now which are abysmal, right? And if these figures continue, no amount of meaningful financial support can come to the 50 plus. However, as we see and as we know, the demographic dividend will not last forever, right? It's maybe 15, 20 years. And then the bureau sweet spot is 25 to 40 years. That starts going up, and these people keep coming to 50, 60 years. So the gist of my first point is that until these people come in a formal fold, to use the term financial inclusion, and bureaus form a very crucial part of this financial inclusion in India. Unless they come to that formal fold, it will be very difficult to make any kind of financial impact on them. That's the first point. Secondly, this 50 plus or 60 plus, whichever way you want to cut it, is not a homogeneous population. The spending patterns, financial needs, the requirement for credit is very different, say, from a 50 to 60, from a 60 to 70, and a 70 plus. I'm just making up broad numbers. India longevity is 74 years, give or take. So I'm just bucketing it in a wide way. But if you see each of these buckets, a 50 to 60, you are at your prime in terms of your income, right? Your needs, your lifestyle is very different. 60 to 70, that way, you step on to a different aspect of living. And say 75 plus, cognitive skills come into force. There's health to be considered, and things start to change. So, like in the younger age group, right? We have all kinds of a bifurcation. We have a millennial, Gen Z, Gen X, whatnot. There has to be some kind of bifurcation that we have when we look at a 50 plus or a 60 plus group, because everything cannot be painted by one brush. Thirdly, and my last point, in India, whatever financial impact that you are giving to any group, you cannot do it without knowing the difference between an India and a Bharat. They operate very, very differently, right? We can use fancy terms like digital onboarding, eKYC and stuff. Trust me, because from our perspective, we work a lot in the MFI segment, the absolute bottom strata of society in terms of disposable income. It is still a person effort. It's a touch and feel. It's a community. There is no digital, and digital is very antithesis to what the spirit of an MFI is. So we have to get into nuances a lot. A longevity issue or of a 60 plus in Bombay is very different from a person living in a village in, say, Bihar or UP, right? So these are subtleties. We need to get into it. I'll restrict to 3 points, but
you can add one more if you want.
No, I had 3.
Okay.
Or I can add one more. There are 2, 3 others, but
yeah.
we'll talk more.
No. Thank you. No, we'll come back to some of the points you actually raised. But that's something I want to get from Japan experience. He actually talked about the 2 segments India has, India and Bharat. That means the rural and, the urban divide. In Japan, how is the experience? I have 2 questions to you. One is, how is the, bifurcation of the whole longevity between the urban and the rural, the non-urban areas? And 2, adaptation of technology itself. You see, is there a change of, behavior when it comes to usage of technology and the availability of technology in Japan?
Okay, Japan has now faced some problem in terms of a strong urbanization. So in the urban areas, you have all the facilities, you have the services that the nurturing needed for the older people are quite well set. But you probably have some problems about the capacity, because you have all the needs concentrated in the urban area. So they are trying to actually offering more capacity in order to catch up with the increasing needs. On the other hand, in these rural areas, the problem is because of the market size or the growth of the market is very limited, more and more companies have stopped offering their services or minimized their branch networks, store chain networks. So as a result, they couldn't actually get the required service when they need it. So now they are trying to leverage a lot of different types of technologies. For example, they are experimenting the remote healthcare. So how do you do this online medical session? And the doctors will talk to you by Zoom and diagnosis what's the problem. And they are trying to think about how to do, for example, surgeries. If you have just one hospital for the whole area and you don't have enough doctors, you need to do all the things and you may not have the expertise you need locally, but you try to do things remotely to make the elder population service possible, even when you have really limited capacity there. Another problem they are facing, it's on the other side of the urban area, is they have less and less labor because of the decreasing population, especially the younger generation. So now they are also trying to have as much as automation so that a lot of the elder people nurturing service can be offered by IT, by robots, not by human beings. And even if they are trying to have more and more non-Japanese labor importing, but it's still not enough for the long run. So that's how they are trying to use the technology to balance the different markets in urban area and the rural areas. And in terms of how we see the differences of people adopting technologies, especially the elder people, I have to say it is still some area that most companies are trying to make effort. So for example, their telco companies are trying to offering those elder people some education courses to use the smartphone, to use the online banking or app service. They are trying to educate them to be able to serve themselves by the smartphone. And in order to do that, they serve these people in their small shops selling the smartphone. So it has to shift from just selling the smartphone to more teaching people to really fully utilize those digital services. And another thing that recently some companies in Japan are discussing is actually about how to leverage Gen AI. Because so far, when you want to educate your customers to use digital, it is still very hard. When the elder people cannot understand something, they just cannot understand. But if from now on we can have Gen AI people to, Gen AI virtual character in the smartphone or even on the online banking app, when you feel confused, somebody will teach you in a natural way. So they hope they can develop some kind of this model. So far, you need to go to the branch, have the manager telling you what to do. But from now on, if they have the Gen AI service in all the apps, maybe somebody can teach you, not a human, but a virtual human.
Yeah. So I think it's a good point to talk about using technology to train the elderly people. So Kaku, from the financial institution side, one of the things Aditya talk about is bracketing of 50 to 60, 60 to 70. Each one has a different lifestyle need, and something which you have been talking about, how to manage the wealth, the will and all those things. So, can you give some insight, because that could actually form the base for some of the ideas for the startups to really start focusing on capitalizing on the longevity economy?
Yeah, so Actually, India can become, as I mentioned, the world platform for longevity products. And why do I say that? Because India has got a young population compared to the rest of the world. And, one of the observations that we all came up is that there are a lot of different products available in different countries with different flexibilities to meet the age needs or the, life cycle needs, if I may. And that is based on the investments that you make, you can garner the fruits of the same. But if you had those products being sold by young, millennials and zillennials in India who would have to have patience and care to explain to the elder generation, this could become a big industry from India perspective. Because as she mentioned recently, that people need human interaction after a age. So if we can really offer that, that becomes one big foray of servicing the world from India. From the financial institution side, I think one of the products that started off, it's not yet got traction, but will soon, is the reverse mortgage. Because if you see, then when people become old, they still want to live in their own house, but they need the monies to survive. So the lender actually gives it against the house. They continue staying in the house, and then later on, after they pass away, basically the house is acquired and the sale proceeds make of it. We also discussed that the same reverse mortgage product could come up in reverse from stock and security perspective. And above all, I think the biggest need people don't realize is the real estate planning or the retirement planning. In fact, the India statistics I was just taking out before is quite pathetic, if I may say. India right now, the labor is contributing only 12% to the retirement pension. But other countries have already moved. Japan, is almost like 100%. South Korea is 78%. China is 56%. Even a country like Philippines has around 26% kind of contributions. So the retirement pension products in India need a long way to really grow. And I think one of the products that we had thought of was on the health front in particular. You know, up to 75, you could keep earning insurance, for example. But post 75, you would need all health expenses, including hospitalization, that's taken care of without really affecting your lifestyle. So there are quite a few kind of products that need to be, but what it needs is two things: change in regulation, it needs flexibility of regulation, and second thing, it also needs, I think what she correctly pointed out, realization that we need to save for a longer life.
Thank you, Kaku. It's one of those cases where I want the conversation to keep going because there's so many new ideas which are actually coming up. Generally, men don't have the last word, but today we are going to give men have the last word. Aditya. So you have been hearing the conversation on different aspects of longevity. I think you talked about the formalization Bharat and India, and the education is a very big part of it. Financial literacy Kaku talked about is very important, but I think across the board it is very important if you want everybody to come into the formal sector. So how do you think in India we could actually use technology or the startup way to solve that problem?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that is required is a larger role by the regulator, right? Because we have seen, rightfully so, that the regulator has played a very important role in controlling and in giving a right direction to a lot of the financial impetus in the country. I think they need to come in with some direction, with some kind of productization in terms of how this market needs to be looked at. Because if the regulatory push is not there, do understand that the credit needs of 25, 20 to 25 vis-a-vis a 25 to 40, because obviously that's the point in life when you are acquiring, and that's the point in life when you're building. The credit needs of that segment till 40, 45 will always be more, right? That's the nature of the beast. But if a regulatory push in terms of guidelines, in terms of guardrails are there, that would be great in terms of the technology impetus. That's one. Second, I think a lot of effort has to be spent in terms of the education, right? Both in terms of digital literacy, in terms of financial literacy. And this is not just about Bharat or India. I mean, even you gave the example of your mother, my mother is no different. So even people living in urban areas, the education or the habit formation of dealing with digital devices is so very important. Has to be a sustained effort, right? This is not something which is a 3-month project or 6-month project. This is a sustained effort which has to be done so that the dividends pay off over time, and this change will take years, right? It's not something which can happen very easily. And lastly, is the intent, because see, India, there is no dearth of technology in terms of the fintechs, in terms of NBFCs, or in terms of any financial institutions. It is the intent to come at a certain sector which shows them a flavor of growth, which shows them a flavor of profitability. As I keep saying, like they look at the Gen Z and the millennial population, how can they have products, how can they have sachet-based services for 50 plus, 60 plus, what you want to call. I think that intent will get us there in terms of technology as well.
That's quite interesting. If I can just summarize the conversation. So I think what we wanted to achieve through this conversation today, because this is the topic generally doesn't get spoken at a broader and a wider forums. And I'm very happy that Global Fintech Fest in Mumbai decided to bring this topic into the main stage. And I have to compliment Kaku for pushing this to get, because she was very keen that we talk about this topic. But I hope that you managed to get the gist of how big the challenge is, but at the same time, as we have seen from Japan experience and the report which got generated, it is a real life issue which can be capitalized into an opportunity. The opportunity could be from the technology space, it could be from the social service, it could be from the infrastructure, it could be from the finance and the wealth management perspective, because the life longevity touch every aspect of business which is out there. It is up to us to figure out how you find the opportunity which matches your passion and start working on it. But to me, what is more important is the support of the government. We have seen in the Japan experience, unless and until the government comes in to support things like silver entrepreneurship. That's where we have Atal Tinkering Lab, but why not silver entrepreneurship? We have this, the societies for people who are aging, the education, the reskill. We talk about youth. We should be talking about reskilling of the aging population. We talk about unemployment in the youth. I worry about unemployment of the aging population, because if you retire at 60, you still have 40 years of active life. So there are a lot of things which we need to discuss and we need to focus on, and that definitely this 40 minutes which we had is not enough. But what this 40 minutes has done is given us that start, and we hope that each one of you present in this room take this thought forward and talk out and start talking about it, so that next time when we meet, we have actually moved the needles. Generally, I'm very generous guy. I allow people in the audience to ask questions. But today, thanks to my panelists who were so insightful, I became greedy and captured the whole time to have conversation with them. But you can have a conversation with them when they step down outside, and you please feel free to reach out to them. They'll be more than happy to give more detailed insight and also access to the report. On that note, we are just like a minute, but any last comment? We have like 2 minutes. Any last comment each one of you want to make? Kaku?
I think I want to just reiterate, longevity finance has got a lot of opportunities, and India should really capture this because it can really give us, say, lot of insights, wealth, as well as service the world.
Thank you. Chen?
I think Japan is really standing at the upfront of such challenges and exploring the solutions for all these problems and needs. So it will be a really good case study for all of you to explore going forward. And if you have any questions, happy to discuss after this session anytime.
Last word.
So the median age in India right now is around 32. And as I say, that the demographic dividend will not last forever. It's a 15 to 20 year cycle. And then we will all be about longevity finance because everybody in this room will be 50 plus, 60 plus. So we need to take this topic seriously because it's going to come and hit us on our face sooner than later. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll all be in part of that generation. Okay, thank you.